Well, how you doing, folks? My name's Gordon McCardle. I'm from Ireland. Welcome to Beyond the Headlines. Uh, I've had this in my head for a long time to do this channel, and current events, I think, have provoked me more so to get off my butt and do it, and seeing what's going on in the world specifically. Now, when we were growing up, I'm sure a lot of you were asked, I'm sure I was when I got into trouble, if everybody else was running and jumping off a cliff, would you do it too? And of course, we're supposed to answer no. Unfortunately, now today, the whole world seems to be running to jump off a cliff, and there are very, very few of us saying no, stop. This is wrong, this is bad. And right now, we're at a very dangerous place in time and in the world. We have Trump in power in the US, acting like a maniac. And we have this war in Ukraine. Now, I have very, very many dear, good friends. Known them for decades, know them to be very, very good people. And I see those good people being lied to and manipulated by their political party, their government, their media, their pretty much every media outlet in the world right now is in lockstep with this lie. That's what scares me the most, is that there's not one journalist out there that is actually doing their job and trying to show the people how the war in Ukraine actually started. And it seems that if you try to, you're shut down immediately as being a Russian agent, MAGA, Trumper, some nutcase conspiracy theorist. But the very fact is that there are historical agreements, historical documents, there are news reports, there are news articles, there are professors, ambassadors, diplomats, civil servants all over the world who worked very, very closely on the collapse of the USSR, the birth of the new Russian nation state, and worked on the American side, worked on the Russian side, maybe worked on the British side, European sides, whatnot. And the most important one of those, I think, is Professor Jeffrey Sachs or Professor John Mearsheimer. Now, if you look up both those guys, Jeffrey Sachs did a fantastic speech to the EU government. If you watch that in full, I believe it's an hour and 36 minutes. It's available on YouTube here. That is the most clear explanation of how this all got to where it is. For those who don't have time or don't want to go into the likes of that, in short, there was an area in East Ukraine, which was, let's say, similar to Northern Ireland, very much populated by ethnic Russian people who lived there when Ukraine was part of the USSR and did not move to the new nation state of Russia when it was born. They stayed where they were. But that group were almost completely dominant in the east and the south of Ukraine. And in 1991, they had a referendum, and they voted that they wanted to move back to the USSR or to the new Russian state. actually, or I think in 2022, there was another referendum where 94%, no, 90% of an 84% turnout. So there was 84% of the voters turned out, and 90% of those people who turned out voted to join Russia again. Now, part and parcel of this was because there was a right-wing militia group which from 2014 had been antagonizing, murdering Russians in this area, and basically acting like the Protestants did in Northern Ireland, attacking the Catholics, turning them into second-class citizens, taking away their land, taking away all their rights. And the Russian Congress, equivalent of Congress, voted so that Putin go in and protect the people who were part of their ethnic group, who had twice had referendums seeking to rejoin Russia, and who did not want to become part of an EU that Western Ukraine people did want to. Now, so this was causing a split down the middle of the country. So it seems like there was almost a civil war was going to break out if Russia did not do what they had done. Now, starting in the late 2010s, the early 2010s, the Maidan Revolution, there was different upheavals or whatnot. Oliver Stone does a fantastic introduction to all of this and explains it all very, very well in Ukraine on Fire. I'm going to be putting links down below on a lot of this stuff. I'm going to be using this video as the main go-to for all Ukraine links that I'm going to be putting up now in future. You're going to find a lot of links down below, and I will come back and probably do another video on this later, because I'm sure you people out there are going to have some questions, you're going to have some criticisms. I want to give you the most unbiased explanation as to how all of this is going on. I'm not to the left, I'm not to the right. I'm solely based on facts. I don't subscribe to these far left, far right sort of things at all. I'm not part of that, and I would hope that my viewers would be the kind of people who are supporting Ukraine right now in error. I mean, good people with good hearts who want an end to the war. That's the kind of people that I want watching this show, not people who want to keep it going, not trying to, cause more trouble in the world. I'm very much in support of the people of Gaza. I'm very much against war and the greed and the lies in particular that America uses to start their wars. In the short space of 250 years, or thereabouts, 1776 to 2025, as far as I'm concerned, they took what was one of the most special places in the world, a very beautiful country. They have raped and pillaged it, murdered hundreds of millions of, or 100 million, maybe Native Americans to steal that country, and raped it and pillaged it, and have now, 250 years later, done what it took the Roman Empire centuries to do. It has collapsed in on itself. There's no infrastructure anymore in the country. It's a failed state. It's a narco failed state. If you look at the cities out there, the homeless, the zombies, I call them when I see them, because they will literally fall asleep standing up in distorted positions for extended periods of time, using various concoctions of drugs that end up here eventually. Now, I got a lot to say about the US government, and it looks like we're going to have a lot of shows to cover here if I'm going to start telling the truth, because this world that we live in is a very different place when you know what really goes on behind the headlines. And that's the name of the show, that's the name of the game. I just, like I said, I wanted you to know we're going to start off here. I am going to explain in more great detail the hows and whys Ukraine came about in links down below. I'll probably have to do another show that's more in-depth and put in some snippets, but I would urge every one of you, if you want to learn Ukraine on Fire by Oliver Stone, watch that. It's available on YouTube free. And then go and find Professor Jeffrey Sachs' explosive speech to the EU Parliament, and that was in the last couple of weeks. Anything by Professor John Mearsheimer on Ukraine. Both Sachs and Mearsheimer are Americans. Mearsheimer's political science lecturer in the University of Chicago. Very, very highly respected gentleman. Men who have been working behind the scenes. Jeffrey Sachs actually was an advisor to successive Ukrainian governments and has been working in politics with the White House and knows the people working in there personally, can make a call, and he's, you know, next to the Oval Room in a matter of seconds. I mean, these are not they're not guys living in their mom's basements. They're not they're not MAGA guys either. That's another thing. All of these people, all of these sources are going to be unbiased. That's the most important thing that you need to know, is that none of these people are affiliated with the MAGA government, the Trumps, anything to do with them, or the Republican Party, or the Democrats. And as far as I'm concerned, the Democrats are the most evil right now. They brought Gaza, all the bombs, all the destruction that was in Gaza, that's all the Democrats. And the Ukraine war was all the Democrats. Now, another thing that's going to blow your mind before we finish up here is, you will remember that President Trump got impeached because he threatened on a phone call to withhold aid to Ukraine because he wanted information about Hunter Biden and some corruption in Ukraine. And so the Democrats used that as a reason to impeach Donald Trump. Well, you're going to find down below in the links, there's going to be a link to a phone call recording of President Biden threatening the Ukrainian government with withholding $1 billion in aid so that a prosecutor who was investigating Hunter for corruption and the gas company in Ukraine, and Biden withheld the aid until the prosecutor was fired. Yes. So the very things that they impeached Trump for, the Democrats are actually guilty of themselves, 1,000,000%, and did it before Trump. So they knew they were guilty of it. They knew what they had done was as bad, if not worse, than what they were accusing Trump of doing. But they have manipulated people's hatred, and a warranted hatred it is, of Trump, to have them believe absolutely anything. And I will go and I will do a show on January 6th. And you're not going to like this either. Most likely you're going to hate me. You're going to hate me for telling you the truth. You're going to hate me for telling you that your reality is a facade. That it's all just a big fiction. That the governments, the entire media, are all lying to you. And this is based on historical facts, documents, articles, witness accounts. It's based on reality, not lies and manipulation, which is what your media, RTE specifically, the Irish Independent. The Irish Independent, if you're an Irish person reading that, you need to take a look and see who Media Huis are. That's the parent company now who owns Irish Independent. And if you look on there, you'll see they own quite a lot of media in Europe. And they are very, very focused on what Brussels wants and what's good for Brussels. And they do not give a rat's ass what's good for the Irish people. As you will see in one of their most recent articles, Daniel O'Donovan, I think he is, and he's telling us that we need to implement the CETA, Canadian-European Trade Agreement, immediately because of their bravery in saving Ukraine. Not to mention the fact that this will cost the Irish taxpayer billions and billions and billions whenever the CETA agreement brings in corporate courts that will sue the Irish state for protecting its people against nasty things that corporations do. So we could be sued for having, say, closing hours in pubs because that impedes on the alcohol companies' ability to make profits. We can be sued for having plain packaging on cigarettes. Now, the very same people who brought in these laws are the very same people who are trying to bring in CETA that will punish us and screw us out of billions and billions of euros for having those laws. But yet they pretend to us how protective they are of us and how they love us so much. They love to give our money to corporations. Our Irish government is a specialist at robbing us blind, such as the Children's Hospital. We'll go into all that in another show. We're going to have a field day, people. So welcome to the games. Welcome to the fun and games. Welcome to the show. It's called Beyond the Headlines. If you have any questions, you have any critiques, you have any comments, I'd be glad to see them down below. We're going to get a phone number, and we're going to have an email address, and hit the button, like and subscribe. I'm new, but I think you're going to want to see this. Have a great day.